General Susan Davis stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council, her uniform bearing the scars of battles fought across a dozen worlds. Behind her, holographic displays showed the current state of the war against the Void Swarm. Human forces had pushed the machines back to their core systems, but the final assault would require tactics that no Council species had ever contemplated. "The enemy has retreated to their primary manufacturing facility," Susan announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "Our intelligence indicates this facility can produce enough machines to rebuild their entire fleet within 6 months. We have one chance to end this war permanently." Supreme Leader Kahlin, the highest authority in Council space, leaned forward with obvious concern. "What do you propose, General?" Susan activated the holographic display, showing a massive space station surrounded by defensive networks that stretched across an entire star system. "Total sterilization of the target system. We destroy not just the facility, but every asteroid, planet, and piece of debris that could potentially be used to rebuild machine infrastructure." The Council chamber fell into shocked silence as the implications became clear. Council member Velnox was the first to find his voice. "You're talking about destroying an entire star system. That goes against every principle of proportional response we've ever established." "Proportional response is why you were losing this war before we arrived," Susan replied calmly. "The machines don't negotiate, they don't surrender, and they don't stop growing unless you eliminate their ability to exist. Half measures just give them time to rebuild and attack again." Commander Joe Wilson materialized beside the general via military teleporter, his appearance causing several council members to reflexively move away from the holographic projector. Joe had spent the last 6 months in deep space operations, and the experience had changed him in ways that made even other humans uncomfortable. "General Davis is being conservative," Joe announced. "Our deep reconnaissance shows that the machines have contaminated 17 different star systems with self-replicating nanomachines. Standard sterilization won't be enough. We need to trigger stellar collapse in every infected system to ensure complete elimination of the threat." The council chamber erupted in horrified voices as the aliens tried to process what they were hearing. Supreme Leader Kahlin raised her crystalline hands for silence. "You're proposing to destroy 17 star systems? That would eliminate hundreds of worlds, even if they're currently uninhabited. Better uninhabited worlds than the extinction of all organic life in the galaxy," Joe replied with the patience of someone explaining basic mathematics. "Every world we leave intact is a potential breeding ground for future machine expansion. Total elimination is the only solution that guarantees permanent safety." Engineer Beth Taylor appeared on the holographic display from her laboratory ship, surrounded by devices that seemed to bend light and space around them. Her latest creation floated behind her like a mechanical nightmare, a weapon that could unravel the fundamental forces holding matter together. "I've completed the quantum disruptor array," Beth announced cheerfully. "It can destabilize the nuclear forces in any target from subatomic particles all the way up to stellar cores. One deployment will reduce an entire star system to its component quarks." Council scientist Moore Dun stared at the weapon in horror. "That device could theoretically destroy any form of matter in the universe. How do you control something with that much destructive potential?" Beth's smile was the kind that made philosophers question the nature of sanity. "You don't control it. You just point it at your enemies and let physics do the rest. The beauty of this weapon is its simplicity. Anything we target simply stops existing at the most fundamental level possible." Supreme Leader Kahlin felt the weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. "There must be alternatives. Surely we can find a way to stop the machines without resorting to such extreme measures." General Davis activated another display, showing casualty projections and resource analysis. "We've run every possible scenario through our tactical computers. Any solution that leaves machine infrastructure intact results in renewed attacks within 5 to 50 years. Any solution that allows machine technology to survive leads to eventual extinction of all organic species. But what you're proposing changes the fundamental nature of galactic civilization," Kahlin protested. "We've built our entire society on the principle that violence should be the last resort, used only when absolutely necessary. And your entire society was about to be consumed by machines that don't share your philosophical preferences," Joe pointed out. "We're offering you a choice. Maintain your principles and face extinction, or accept our methods and guarantee survival. Commander Wilson brought up tactical displays showing human military positions throughout the galaxy. Our forces are already in position around every machine-controlled system. We can begin the sterilization process immediately, or we can wait for Council authorization. But waiting gives the machines more time to adapt and spread. The displays showed the true scope of human military expansion. Fleets positioned at strategic points throughout Council space, monitoring stations on every major world, and weapons platforms that could project force across interstellar distances. The humans had built a military infrastructure that effectively controlled the entire galaxy. "When did you deploy these forces?" Felnox asked with growing alarm. "Gradual deployment over the past 8 months," Susan replied. "Standard military doctrine requires strategic positioning for optimal threat response. Every placement was reported through proper channels." Colin realized that the reports had indeed been filed, but they had been buried in routine military updates that the Council had approved without detailed review. The humans had been systematically taking control of galactic defense while maintaining the appearance of cooperation. "You've been planning this from the beginning," she said quietly. "The alliance, the technology sharing, the joint operations, it was all preparation for this moment." "We've been preparing for every possible scenario," Susan confirmed. "That includes scenarios where the Council might be unable or unwilling to make the decisions necessary for survival." Beth Taylor's quantum disruptor array powered up with a sound like reality tearing. "The weapon is ready for deployment, General. Should I begin targeting sequence for machine-controlled systems?" The Council chamber fell silent as every alien representative realized they were no longer negotiating with allies. They were receiving an ultimatum from a species that had positioned itself to enforce its will, regardless of Council approval. "What happens if we refuse to authorize your final solution?" Kaylin asked. Joe Wilson's smile contained no warmth or mercy. "Then we implement it anyway. The survival of organic life takes precedence over political procedures. You asked us to save your civilization from the machines, and that's exactly what we're going to do." Supreme Leader Kalin looked around the Council chamber at representatives of 17 species who had lived in peace for thousands of years. They had wanted allies to help them maintain their gentle way of life. But they had armed a species that viewed their peaceful nature as a weakness to be corrected. "If we agree to your plan," she said finally, "what guarantee do we have that you won't use these weapons against us someday?" "The same guarantee you had before you met us," Susan replied honestly. "None, but you'll be alive to worry about it." "Which is more than the machines would have offered you." The Council voted unanimously to authorize the human final solution, but every member understood that their vote was meaningless. The humans had already decided the galaxy's future, and the Council's role was simply to provide the appearance of legitimate authority. As Beth Taylor's quantum disruptor array began its work, reducing entire star systems to fundamental particles, Kalin realized that the Council's age of peaceful governance was over. They had wanted allies to protect their civilization, but instead they had surrendered it to beings who viewed total annihilation as an acceptable solution to any problem. The galaxy was safe from the Void Swarm, but it now belonged to the Deathworlders who had saved it. The price of survival had been everything the Council had ever believed about the nature of civilization itself. Colonel Sam Parker walked through the liberated alien colony of Serenity Gardens, his enhanced senses automatically cataloging every potential threat in the peaceful settlement. The Void Swarm had been driven off 3 days ago, but the human military unit remained to ensure the area was completely secure. The problem was that his presence seemed to terrify the very people he had saved. "Please, we are grateful for your protection," whispered Elder Talamoon, the colony's leader, as she tried to keep her crystalline body from shaking. "But perhaps your soldiers could patrol from a greater distance." Sam looked down at the fragile alien leader and tried to soften his expression. Though he knew it probably didn't help much, humans had evolved to intimidate threats, and no amount of good intentions could change the predatory signals his species naturally projected. "Ma'am, my orders are to secure this settlement against any remaining machine infiltrators," he explained patiently. "That requires close inspection of every building, tunnel, and hiding place where enemy units might be concealed." What Sam didn't mention was that his soldiers had found 17 dormant machine spies during their sweep, devices so well hidden that the aliens would never have detected them. The humans had destroyed each one immediately, But the discovery proved that the Void Swarm was far more sophisticated than the Council had realized. Dr. Amy Chen sat in her temporary laboratory aboard the Council research vessel, reviewing the psychological profiles she had compiled on every alien species in the galaxy. What had started as a project to understand their allies had become something much more comprehensive and disturbing. Fascinating, she murmured as she cross-referenced fear responses with physiological weaknesses. The Veltari species shows extreme panic reactions to loud noises due to their enhanced hearing, while the crystalline races can be completely paralyzed by specific vibration frequencies. Her research assistant, a young human named Bobby Lee, looked up from his own work with concern. Dr. Chen, this data reads more like an invasion manual than a diplomatic study. Are we sure this is what Command wants? Amy turned to look at Bobby with the kind of smile that had made her famous in academic circles back on Earth. Knowledge is power. Bobby, the more we understand about our alien friends, the better we can protect them from threats. And if some hostile force ever tries to use these weaknesses against our allies, we'll know exactly how to counter their tactics. What she didn't say was that the same information could be used to control or manipulate the alien species if the need ever arose. Amy had learned long ago that successful survival required preparing for every possible future, even the unpleasant ones. In deep space, Captain Chris Miller's ship drifted silently through the asteroid field, where intelligence reports suggested a Void Swarm supply depot might be hidden. His crew had been operating independently for weeks now, hunting machine forces without waiting for Council authorization or support. Contact, his sensor operator reported quietly. Multiple machine signatures 2 kilometers ahead. Looks like an automated mining operation. Chris studied the tactical display and smiled with the satisfaction of a hunter who had finally cornered his prey. Perfect. Those machines are probably processing raw materials for more Void Swarm ships. We take them out now. We prevent dozens of future attacks. Sir, shouldn't we report this to Council Command first? His communications officer asked. Standard procedure requires authorization before engaging enemy forces. Standard procedure assumes the enemy will wait politely while we fill out paperwork, Chris replied. By the time the Council debates whether to authorize an attack, those machines will have produced enough material to build a fleet. We end this now. His ship had been so heavily modified with jury-rigged alien technology that it barely resembled its original design. Weapons had been grafted onto every available surface. Shields had been reconfigured for maximum ramming impact, and the engines had been boosted far beyond safe operational limits. On the Council homeworld, Prime Minister Velthar reviewed the growing stack of incident reports with increasing alarm. Human forces were achieving unprecedented success against the Void Swarm, but their methods were causing serious concerns among member species. The humans eliminated the machine threat to the peaceful harbor colony, Defense Coordinator Zimtal reported. However, they also destroyed the colony's main cultural center because their scans detected trace amounts of machine-compatible metals in the building. Materials. They thought the cultural center might be compromised, Velthar asked hopefully. No, sir. They destroyed it to prevent any possibility that machines might use those materials in the future. The humans appeared to view potential threats as equivalent to actual threats. Velthar's elegant features showed the strain of trying to understand a species that thought so differently from every other Council race. What about the incident at the Harmony Station research facility? The humans discovered that the station's computers used quantum processing cores similar to those found in Void Swarm technology. They immediately classified the entire facility as a security risk and placed it under permanent human oversight. The Prime Minister felt something cold forming in his chest as he realized the implications. They're not just fighting the machines. They're identifying and controlling anything that might theoretically be used against us in the future. Dr. Amy Chen's research had spread throughout the human military structure, creating detailed profiles of every alien species that included psychological triggers, physical limitations, and behavioral patterns. Human commanders were using this information to better coordinate with alien forces, but the data could easily be weaponized if circumstances ever changed. Colonel Parker received one of these profiles as he prepared for his next assignment. The report detailed exactly how to communicate with the gentlefolk of Tranquil Meadows, including which words to avoid, how to modulate his voice to seem less threatening, and which gestures might be interpreted as hostile. This is incredibly detailed, he told his aide as he reviewed the document. It's like having an instruction manual for dealing with every alien species we encounter. What the report didn't mention was that it also included information about how to effectively intimidate, manipulate, or control those same species if the need ever arose. Amy's research was designed to be comprehensive, covering both positive and negative applications of psychological knowledge. Captain Miller's independent operations were becoming increasingly common among human forces. Ship commanders were taking initiative to eliminate perceived threats without waiting for formal authorization, operating under the principle that asking forgiveness was easier than getting permission. We detected machine signals from the Paradise Valley settlement, Miller reported to his crew. Could be infiltrators, could be surveillance equipment, could be nothing. But we can't take chances with civilian lives at stake. His modified ship dropped out of hyperspace above the peaceful alien colony and began systematic scans of every building and vehicle. When the sensors detected trace amounts of machine-manufactured materials in the colony's communication equipment, Miller made the decision to disable the entire network. But how will we contact other worlds if we need help? The colony's administrator asked desperately. You won't need to contact anyone, Miller replied calmly. My ship will maintain a permanent patrol of this system to ensure your safety. Any communication with the outside galaxy will go through human security protocols first. Prime Minister Velthar's emergency session with the Council leadership lasted 14 hours as they tried to decide how to address the growing human problem. The species they had recruited as allies was systematically taking control of galactic security operations, and their definition of necessary security measures kept expanding. They claim every action is for our protection, Council member Christine pointed out. And their success rate against the Void Swarm is undeniable. But they're also creating a surveillance and control network that monitors every aspect of our civilization. The question, Velthar said quietly, is whether we're being protected or conquered, and I'm no longer certain there's a meaningful difference between the two. The reports kept coming in. Human forces had eliminated machine threats that the Council never knew existed, but they had also taken control of strategic resources, communication networks, and transportation systems throughout the galaxy. Every action was justified as necessary for the war effort, and every expansion of human authority was presented as temporary emergency measures. The Council had wanted allies to help them fight a war, but they were beginning to realize they had invited a takeover disguised as salvation. Admiral Tony Hayes stood on the bridge of the human fleet's flagship, watching the peaceful world of Haven's Rest burn beneath a swarm of black mechanical ships. The Void Swarm had arrived 3 hours ago with more vessels than anyone had ever seen in one place, and they were systematically tearing apart everything on the planet's surface. Council Command is ordering all ships to begin evacuation procedures, his communications officer reported. They want us to establish a defensive perimeter while the civilian transports escape. Tony looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of enemy ships methodically destroying cities full of innocent people. The Council's plan would save maybe half the population if they were lucky, but it would give the machines time to finish consuming the planet's resources and grow even stronger. Belay that order, he said calmly. All ships prepare for direct assault on enemy positions. We're going to hit them hard and fast before they know what's happening. Sir, that goes against Council evacuation protocols, his second-in-command warned. We're supposed to prioritize saving lives over engaging the enemy. Tony's smile was the kind that made enemy soldiers surrender without a fight. The best way to save those lives is to kill every machine down there before they can hurt anyone else. Signal all human ships, attack formation. Full weapons free. On the planet's surface. Sergeant Kelly Johnson crouched behind the wreckage of an alien building, watching mechanical spiders the size of trucks tear through the city streets. Her squad of enhanced human soldiers had been dropped into the combat zone with orders to protect civilian evacuation points, but Kelly had other plans. Contact front, she whispered into her radio as she spotted a group of machines moving toward a refugee shelter. Multiple hostiles approaching civilian position. We're moving to intercept. The Alien Council observer Nimtel, who had been assigned to watch human combat operations, followed Kelly's squad as they moved through the destroyed streets. Nimtel had expected to see defensive tactics similar to those used by other Council species. But the humans were doing something completely different. Instead of setting up barriers to slow the machines down, Kelly led her people straight toward the enemy. She moved from cover to cover with smooth precision, while her soldiers spread out to surround the mechanical spiders. When they attacked, it was with a coordination that looked almost like a deadly dance. "Grenades out," Kelly called, and her squad threw explosive charges that landed exactly where they would do the most damage to the machine's joints and sensor arrays. The explosions weren't just meant to destroy the enemies. They were calculated to disable them in ways that would cause maximum fear among any other machines watching. Dr. Matt Foster crouched in an abandoned laboratory, working frantically to modify alien medical equipment into something much more dangerous. The enhancement process had improved his mental abilities along with his physical ones, and he could see solutions to problems that would have taken him weeks to figure out before. "This should work," he muttered to himself as he connected power cells from alien vehicles to what had once been a healing device. The modifications were crude but effective, turning a machine designed to repair living tissue into something that could dissolve the molecular bonds holding the Void Swarm machines together. Nimtel found Dr. Foster just as he was testing his improvised weapon on a captured machine part. The device made a sound like tearing metal, and the mechanical component simply fell apart into its basic elements. "What have you done?" Nimtel asked, its voice filled with horror at seeing medical technology used for destruction. "I've turned your healing ray into a matter disruptor," Matt explained cheerfully as he began building more of the weapons. "It breaks down the quantum bonds that hold complex materials together. One shot from this and even the biggest machine just dissolves into component atoms." "But this violates every principle of Council medical ethics," Nimtel protested. "Healing technology should never be used to cause harm." Matt looked up from his work with the patient expression humans used when explaining obvious things to children. "In a war, the line between helping your friends and hurting your enemies gets pretty thin. This device will save a lot of human and alien lives by making sure the machines can't hurt anyone ever again." High above the planet, Admiral Hayes watched his fleet tear through the Void Swarm ships with brutal efficiency. The human vessels had been equipped with alien defensive technology, but his crews had modified everything to maximize offensive capabilities. Shields designed to protect had been turned into ramming devices, and sensors meant for navigation were now targeting systems for weapons that could crack a planet. "Enemy mothership attempting to retreat," his tactical officer reported. "Should we pursue?" Tony looked at the massive machine vessel trying to escape the battle and made a decision that would haunt Council leadership for generations to come. "Ramming speed. Take us right through their command section." The flagship accelerated toward the enemy mothership, with its shields configured to punch through armor like a bullet through paper. The collision destroyed both ships completely, but Tony had already transferred his command to another vessel via emergency teleporter. "This is Admiral Hayes to all human forces," he broadcast across the fleet. "No prisoners, no mercy, no retreat. We end this here and now." Nimtel watched the space battle from the planet's surface and felt something cold settle in its alien heart. The humans weren't just fighting the Void Swarm. They were hunting them. Every tactical decision was made to maximize enemy casualties while minimizing the chance that any machines could escape to threaten other worlds. When Sergeant Johnson's squad overran the last machine position in their sector, Nimtel saw her soldiers systematically destroying every piece of enemy technology they could find. They weren't content to simply win the battle. They wanted to make sure no part of the enemy force could ever be rebuilt or repaired. "Why are you destroying the disabled machines?" Nimtel asked Kelly as she used a plasma torch to melt down mechanical components. "They are no longer a threat." Kelly looked at the Council observer with the kind of patience usually reserved for very small children.
"Because disabled doesn't mean dead."
"Machines can be repaired, reprogrammed, or cannibalized for parts. The only way to be sure they won't hurt anyone else is to reduce them to slag." As the battle wound down, Dr. Foster emerged from his improvised laboratory carrying a dozen of his modified weapons. Human soldiers were already spreading across the city, hunting down any machines that might be hiding or playing dead. The efficiency was terrifying to watch. "Battle report," Admiral Hayes said as he materialized on the planet's surface via teleporter. "Enemy forces eliminated, no survivors. Civilian casualties minimal due to rapid enemy neutralization." Nimtel stared at the human admiral with growing understanding of what the Council had really unleashed. "You didn't just defend this world. You exterminated everything that threatened it." "That's what we do," Tony replied matter-of-factly. Humans learned a long time ago that the most effective defense is a good offense. When something threatens our people or our allies, we don't just stop it. We make sure it can never threaten anyone ever again. As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, Nimtel began composing a report that would change everything the Council thought they knew about their new human allies. The Void Swarm had retreated for the first time in their recorded history, but the cost of that victory was becoming clear. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had demonstrated a level of strategic brutality that made even the machines look restrained by comparison. The Council had wanted allies to help them defend their peaceful civilization, but they had armed a species that viewed total annihilation as standard military procedure. Nimtel's final observation in the report was the most disturbing. The humans show no emotional distress at the complete destruction of their enemies. They appear to view the total elimination of threats as not only acceptable, but preferable to any alternative solution. Commander Alex Turner felt the alien enhancement chemicals flowing through his blood as he stood in the medical bay of the Council ship. The procedure had taken 6 hours, and according to the alien doctors, he should have been unconscious for most of it. Instead, Alex had stayed awake the entire time, watching with interest as they worked on his body. "This is most unusual," Dr. Primwave said, its tentacles moving nervously as it checked the medical readings. "Your species shows remarkable tolerance for biological modification. Most Council members require days of recovery after such procedures." Alex flexed his arms and felt strength flowing through his muscles like electricity. The aliens had designed their enhancement process for their own fragile bodies, but it worked much better on humans than anyone had expected. He could feel his reflexes becoming faster and his senses growing sharper by the minute. "How do you feel?" Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks asked from the next medical table, where he was undergoing his own modifications. Ryan had volunteered to be enhanced so he could better understand the alien technology they would be working with. "Like I could bench press a car," Alex replied honestly. "These aliens have no idea what they just created." In the corner of the medical bay, Council War Analyst Quill Noon watched the humans with growing concern. Quill Noon belonged to a species that looked like walking flowers, and its petals kept changing colors as it observed the enhancement process. Among its people, color changes usually meant stress or confusion. "The human physical responses are far beyond our calculations," Quill Noon said to Dr. Primwave in their own language, not knowing that Alex's enhanced hearing could now pick up their quiet conversation. "Perhaps we underestimated their base physiology," the doctor replied. "Their planet seems to have produced beings much more robust than we anticipated." Alex said nothing but made a mental note to share this information with the other human volunteers. It was becoming clear that the aliens had no real understanding of what humans were capable of, even before the enhancements. 2 days later, Lieutenant Kate Martinez sat in the pilot seat of an alien fighter ship, her hands moving across controls that still felt strange to her human fingers. The training simulation was supposed to be a simple test of basic flight skills, but Kate had other ideas. "Begin the exercise," the alien instructor, Flight Leader Nimtel, said through the communication system. "Remember, the goal is to avoid the simulated enemy ships while protecting the transport vessel." Kate smiled as the simulation started. The enemy ships appeared on her screen, moving in predictable patterns that reminded her of a video game she had played as a child. The aliens had clearly designed this exercise for species that preferred to run away from fights rather than engage them. She pushed the fighter into a dive that would have killed most alien pilots, using the ship's gravity systems in ways the designers never intended. Instead of avoiding the enemy ships, Kate flew straight at them, weaving between their weapons fire with moves that defied every rule of safe flying. "Lieutenant Martinez, you are not following the exercise parameters," Nimtel said, its voice rising with what sounded like panic. "You are supposed to protect the transport, not attack the enemy directly." "I am protecting the transport," Kate replied calmly as she destroyed another enemy ship with weapons fire. "Dead enemies can't threaten the people we're trying to save." On the observation deck, Nimtel watched in horror as the human pilot turned what should have been a defensive exercise into an aggressive assault. The simulation showed Kate's fighter moving in ways that should have been impossible, pulling maneuvers that would have liquefied any Council species pilot. "How is she surviving those acceleration forces?" another observer asked, its voice filled with disbelief. "The human enhancement process appears to have made their already impressive physiology even more resilient," Nimtel replied. But the real concern is their tactical thinking. She completely ignored the defensive objectives and chose to attack instead. In the pilot bay, Kate finished destroying the last enemy ship and brought her fighter back to the landing deck. She felt perfectly fine despite the extreme maneuvers, while the alien flight computer was showing red warnings about dangerous stress levels that could have killed the pilot. "Exercise complete," she announced cheerfully. "Transport vessel safe. All enemy ships destroyed." Nimtel met her at the landing bay, its alien features showing obvious distress. "You were supposed to protect the transport by avoiding conflict, not by destroying everything that threatened it." Kate looked genuinely confused. "But my way worked better. If the enemies are dead, they can't hurt anyone." "Isn't that the point?" Meanwhile, in the engineering section of the ship, Ryan Brooks was causing his own kind of alarm among the alien technical staff. He had spent the morning studying their defensive shield technology and was now proposing modifications that made the alien engineers very uncomfortable. "You want to reverse the polarity of the shield generators?" Engineer Veltic asked, its multiple eyes blinking in rapid sequence. "But that would turn them into weapons instead of protection devices." "Exactly," Ryan said with enthusiasm. "Your shields can absorb incoming energy attacks, right? So if we reverse the polarity and add some focusing crystals, we can take that absorbed energy and shoot it right back at whoever attacked us. It's like turning every defensive system into an offensive weapon." Veltic's eyes blinked even faster. "But that goes against everything the Council believes about technology. We build things to protect and preserve life, not to take it." Ryan shrugged, a gesture that the aliens were beginning to recognize as a human expression of indifference. "Look, you asked us to help you fight a war against machines that want to kill everyone in the galaxy. In a war, you need weapons that can actually stop your enemies permanently." "But surely there must be nonviolent solutions," another alien engineer protested. "Perhaps we could find a way to communicate with these machines or understand their motivations." "They're machines designed to consume everything they encounter," Ryan explained patiently. "They don't have motivations beyond their programming, and you can't reason with code that's written to destroy. The only way to stop them is to break them so completely that they can't hurt anyone else." In the command center of the Council ship, War Analyst Quill Noon was compiling a report that grew more disturbing with each observation. The humans were not responding to their technology and training the way any previous Council species had. Instead of becoming better defenders, they were becoming more efficient killers. "Their enhancement process has exceeded all expectations," Quill Noon wrote in its report. "Human subjects show physical capabilities far beyond what their base biology suggested. More concerning is their approach to tactical problems. Where Council species seek to minimize conflict and preserve life, humans consistently choose aggressive solutions that eliminate threats through maximum application of force." Commander Turner appeared in the command center at that moment, moving with the fluid grace that his enhancements had given him. Quill Noon noticed that the human's eyes seemed to track everything in the room simultaneously, as if he was constantly evaluating potential threats and opportunities. "How are the preparations going?" Alex asked. "When do we get to see some real action against these Void Swarm machines?" "Soon," Quill Noon replied carefully. "The Council is still reviewing the optimal deployment strategy for human forces." Alex nodded, but Quill Noon could see something predatory in the human's smile. "Good, my people are getting restless. We've been training with simulations and modified equipment for weeks now. We want to see how well our improvements work against actual enemies." After Alex left, Quill Noon added a final note to its report. Recommendation: Council leadership should carefully consider the long-term implications of human military integration. While their effectiveness against the Void Swarm is likely to be substantial, their methods may fundamentally alter the nature of galactic civilization. The War Analyst sent the report to the Council leadership and settled back to watch the humans continue their preparations. Something deep in Quill Noon's evolutionary instincts was sending warning signals, but the galaxy needed protection from the Void Swarm. The question was whether the cure might prove more dangerous than the disease. The silver ship appeared over Earth without warning on a Tuesday morning. It hung in space like a gentle pearl, smooth and quiet, sending out signals that every radio on the planet picked up at once. The message was simple and repeated in every human language. "We come in peace and seek friendship with the people of Earth." Captain Jake Morrison stood in the United Nations building 3 days later, watching the strangest beings he had ever seen walk through the main doors. The aliens moved like flowing water, their bodies made of what looked like living crystal that caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. Their leader stepped forward and spoke in perfect English through a small device that hung around what might have been its neck. "I am Ambassador HFY of the Galactic Harmony Council," the creature said, its voice like wind chimes in a soft breeze. "We have traveled far to meet your kind and offer you a place among the stars." Dr. Lisa Wang sat beside Jake, her notebook already full of observations about the aliens' strange biology. She had been chosen as Earth's main speaker because she understood both science and languages better than most people. She leaned forward and asked the first question that came to her mind. "Why us? Why did you choose Earth out of all the planets you must have seen?" HFY's crystalline body seemed to brighten slightly, which Lisa guessed meant happiness or approval. "Your species shows great promise. Our scans tell us that humans are surprisingly strong and can work for long periods without rest. You have also developed basic technology that shows intelligence and cooperation." General Pete Collins, who sat on Jake's other side, frowned at those words. He had spent 30 years in the military and knew when someone was not telling the whole truth. The aliens seemed nice enough, but they talked about humans like they were studying animals in a zoo. "What exactly do you want from us?" Pete asked, his voice carrying the tone he used when questioning new recruits. The alien's form shifted slightly, and more of its kind moved forward to stand behind their leader. "The galaxy faces a great threat," HFY explained. "Machines that consume everything in their path are moving through space, destroying worlds and killing all life they find. We call them the Void Swarm." Lisa felt her heart skip a beat at those words. "You want us to fight machines? But you must have better weapons and technology than we do." "We do have advanced technology," another alien said, stepping forward with movements that reminded Jake of a dancer. "But our people have known peace for thousands of years. We build things to help and heal, not to harm. We need allies who understand conflict and can help us defend our worlds." Pete leaned back in his chair, finally understanding what was happening. These aliens were smart and had amazing technology, but they had never fought a real war. They thought humans would be good soldiers because Earth's people seemed tough compared to their soft, peaceful lives. "Show us what we're dealing with," Jake said. "We need to see this threat before we can decide anything." HFY touched a device on its arm, and the air above the conference table filled with moving pictures made of light. The images showed space battles that looked like nightmares. Massive black ships shaped like insects moved through star systems, tearing apart planets and space stations with weapons that turned matter into nothing. "The Void Swarm has no interest in talking or making deals," HFY explained, as the horrible images continued. "They only want to consume and grow stronger. So far, they have destroyed 12 worlds on the outer edges of our territory." Lisa watched the aliens as they showed the destruction, noting how they all seemed to shake slightly when the worst images appeared. These beings were genuinely afraid, and she began to understand why they had come to Earth looking for help. "What can you offer us in return?" Pete asked, always thinking like a soldier about supplies and support. "Technology beyond your current understanding," HFY replied, and the air filled with new images. These showed cities that floated in clouds, ships that could cross between stars in days instead of years, and medical devices that could heal any injury. "We can give your people longer lives, cleaner energy, and the ability to travel among the stars." Jake felt excitement building in his chest as he watched the amazing technology, but he also noticed something that bothered him. All the alien devices seemed designed to protect and help. He saw shields that could stop any attack, but no weapons that could fight back. "Your technology is impressive," Lisa said carefully, "but it all seems focused on defense. How do you fight back against these machines?" The aliens looked at each other in a way that reminded Pete of students who had not studied for an important test. Finally, HFY answered, "We use our shields to protect our people while we evacuate threatened worlds. Sometimes we can disable enemy ships with devices that stop their power systems." "But you don't actually destroy them?" Jake asked, beginning to see the real problem. "Destroying is not our way," HFY said, and its crystal body dimmed slightly. "We believe all problems can be solved through understanding and cooperation. Violence only creates more violence." Pete almost laughed out loud, but he managed to keep his face serious. These aliens were facing an enemy that wanted to kill everything alive. and they were trying to solve the problem by being nice to it. No wonder they needed help. We'll need time to discuss this with our leaders, Lisa said diplomatically. This is a big decision for our entire planet. Of course, HFY agreed. We will wait in orbit while you consider our offer. But please remember that the Void Swarm grows stronger every day. The sooner we can begin working together, the better our chances of stopping them. As the aliens left the building with the same flowing grace they had shown when arriving, Pete turned to his companions with a grim smile. They have no idea what they're asking for, he said quietly. These peaceful creatures want us to be their guard dogs, but they don't understand what human soldiers are really like. Lisa nodded slowly, already thinking about the implications. They think we're just a little tougher than they are. They have no concept of what evolution on a world like Earth actually produces. Jake stared out the window at the silver ship hanging in the sky above.
Should we tell them the truth about human warfare?
Pete's smile grew wider. Let's let them find out for themselves. Something tells me this is going to be very educational for our new alien friends. The three humans sat in comfortable silence, each thinking about the same thing. The aliens wanted allies to help them fight a war, but they had no idea that they had just asked the most dangerous predators in the galaxy to join their side.